You ever pulled an engine out of a car? This is what this feels like. I got it in backwards, 100%. So in today's video, I want to do some maintenance on our MX8600 from WoodMaxx. And right off the top, we are not sponsored by WoodMaxx for this wood chipper. We bought this ourselves off of Facebook Marketplace, but we recently did a video where I got this whole area jammed with wood chips and I had to take it off to clear it. And one of their engineers was watching the video and picked up on something and sent me some parts. One thing I really like about these WoodMaxx wood chippers is that they are proudly made in the USA. There's a sticker right here that says that. And this thing is built, I would say, as strong as any chipper could be, because I'm not friendly to it. I shove as big logs as I can into it to chip them up, and it's never failed me. It'll stall the tractor before it'll stop chipping. But let's pull up this flywheel cover and show you what they noticed on my video. So I just removed this 1 3/4 bolt from this flywheel cover. When you open this up, you can see this is bent right here. And I didn't know that was a problem. I've been using it for a while, that it was with it bent like that. And I don't know what bends it, but the engineer said that they had created a new one that was beefier, and he would send it to me because they want all their customers satisfied. But this is the new one, and instead of it just having a tab right here, they put another whole piece of metal here and welded it. But that makes that at an angle now, whereas that was just a tab of metal sticking out. Now he said that you can change these without taking it all the way apart, but we're gonna see if that's true. If I can, I will. If I can't, then I'm gonna take this flywheel completely out. So these are the backside bolts that hold that on, and I think what it is there's a hex bolt down in there. I'm gonna take this cover off and see if I can get to that. And he also gave me an idea or a suggestion that if I don't want to take the flywheel out, I can take an Allen wrench and grind it down to make it work in there. But let's get this cover off and see what's behind there. If you look here on the blades themselves, they've got a hex or an Allen wrench that holds them while you take the nut off and change the blades. But down in there, it's also an Allen wrench, but I don't know what size. And this won't fit in there. To check to see what size, and what they've said is you can cut these off or grind them off to make it shorter, and that way you don't have to pull the flywheel out. But pulling the flywheel out is a matter of loosening up this right here, this belt, so that this comes off. And I don't know if that's the hydraulic pump. I think it is. I think that's the hydraulic pump. It's run by the PTO, but take this belt off, and then it's just a matter of 8 bolts to pull that whole flywheel out. And I think that's going to be easier to do. You can see here better on the front side. It's just 4 bolts, and they don't have nuts on them. They're just threaded into the frame there. So I'm going to go ahead and take all that out. So I was looking at this on how to take that belt off, and I was thinking I had to loosen up some bolts, but then I noticed the spring. So all I have to do is lift up on this, and it'll turn because it's putting constant tension on the belt, and I can pull that belt off. Now, I'm not an engineer, don't claim to be one, and I'm not studied in it, but I appreciate things that are nicely or well engineered. And this thing, this wood chipper really is, as I look at it. And it kind of brings to mind something I've been researching a lot lately, and it's got me angry, and it probably has you angry too if you've heard about it. I love half-ton pickups. I'm not a big tower, so I'm not big into the 3/4 or 1-ton trucks and diesels and all that. I like a V8 half-ton pickup that's reliable, that looks good. For me, it's got to be 4-wheel drive, lifted with big tires. I'm getting ready to do that on my 2018. And when I bought that truck, I was looking for a truck that would be reliable, like for my forever truck, but you can't buy a reliable truck anymore. So I'm going to create some videos about the build of my truck and what I'm doing to bulletproof it, to get it to last as long as trucks used to last, straight from the factory. But there's so much information now on YouTube with these engineers that are coming out and saying basically I think it's across the board, but I'll stick with GM, that GM is making junk, and they know they're making junk, and the engineers are mad because they don't want you spending $60,000 on a pickup truck knowing that it won't last. So what I'm finding out is that it was a conscious decision, and a lot of it's driven by CAFE standards. And if you don't know what CAFE standards are, basically the government says that your entire fleet of vehicles that you build have to meet a certain miles per gallon. And you do that with some vehicles getting really high mileage because you know there's certain things that, like a big 3/4 ton or 1 ton truck, that you're just not going to be able to get the mileage, miles per gallon out of it. So you're going to make your Priuses and your smaller cars get really, really high mileage, and then do some tweaking on the ones like the V8s, like the trucks, so that you can kind of even it all out and meet these standards. And they get increasingly difficult to meet, right? They get higher and higher. You know, your whole fleet has to be 20 miles per gallon. And how do you do that? How do you reduce fuel mileage or increase fuel mileage? And one way is make things lighter. So that's why things have gone to plastic. Ford went to aluminum, I think, before anyone else did with their pickup trucks, and go away from V8s and go to smaller displacement engines and turbocharge them and just get everything as light as possible. And for the truck market, especially in GM, they went to dynamic fuel management or active fuel management, or whatever you want to call it, because it's changed over the years, to where they turn off a few cylinders of your engine. And I think the new engines can go down to like 2 cylinders. I'm not sure of that, but I have what's called active fuel management, and mine goes between 4-cylinder and 8-cylinder, but I think the new active fuel management, the AFM, can go even lower than 4 cylinders. So they just want your truck sipping as little gas as possible to help meet these standards. And another thing they're doing is going to multi-speed transmissions, because back in the day, almost all transmissions were 4-speed automatic transmissions. And now in 2014, my truck was a 6-speed, and it didn't have a lot of, data or engineering. I guess it had a lot of engineering, but there just wasn't a lot of longevity data in it. And they wanted to get better mileage, so GM went to an 8-speed transmission, and now they're on 10-speed transmissions. But as these things get up in mileage, they're finding out that these transmissions are failing. And a transmission, if it's properly serviced, should last 200,000 or 300,000 miles. And you're lucky now if you can get 100,000 miles out of a GM transmission. You've got people out there that are relying on their trucks, their pickup trucks, that are way overpriced. They have so much electronics and computer modules and all those things. Can't really work on them anymore yourself unless you have all this diagnostic equipment. It's not fair. We need reliable vehicles, and they're not making the vehicles that are reliable, and there's nothing we can do about it. And you're kind of just stuck working within their warranty system. Got all these modern synthetic lubricating fluids, and they say it's okay for these transmissions to run hotter. And I was listening to a GM engineer this morning talk about the fact that they've eliminated the transmission coolers. And this isn't just for trucks, just for like Yukons and other SUVs and stuff too, because it's a weight concern. So they remove these coolers, and then they put in a synthetic transmission fluid, and they say, it can run hotter. Well, this engineer is saying it running hotter is why they're failing. And the transmission wants to run around 200 degrees, and these transmissions are running 240, 280 degrees, depending on if they're towing or not, or they going uphill, or they in a real hot climate like in the desert. And they're failing. They're just not getting to 200,000 miles. And my buddy put a cooler on, or he tried to help his transmission, and he got it to 140,000 miles just last week, and his transmission went up on him. So he took it to a local shop that we have confidence in, and the shop said, I think it was $5,500. Took him 2 days to remove the transmission, rebuild it, put it back in, put in a better torque converter, and this should last. Well, my friend was like, how many of these are you seeing? And the guy says, we do 20 or 30 a month. That's like one transmission a day. He says that they are routinely failing around 100 to 120,000 miles. And GM knows it, and they do nothing about it. They just somehow are able to evade any kind of responsibility. And us consumers out here are paying 60, 70, in some cases on these higher end half-ton pickups, $90,000, and it's not even going to last to 100,000 miles before you have to put $5,500 in your transmission. It's not right, man. It's just not right. I'm going to have to use a tractor to lift that up. I just don't want to drop it. All right, let's see if this works. That's awesome. I got this thing out of there. That way I can just really inspect it. Now that I look at it, I don't know how much I gained with getting in behind this pillow block bearing. May not have gained anything. You ever pulled an engine out of a car? This is what this feels like. The whole reason for taking this apart was so we could get an Allen wrench in there. And it still isn't going to go. At this point, if I can figure out what size that is, I guess I'll go ahead and cut one. Otherwise, I got to take this pillow block bearing off. So I'm really interested to know your guys' thoughts on that. Are you seeing that as well with your vehicles? Have you noticed the decline in the quality of vehicles and also how they seem to need more maintenance? But I've got this pillow block bearing pushed down a little bit, and I've taken a Allen wrench and I've cut off a piece of it. So what I was planning on doing was kind of cutting this off to make that shorter so it would fit in there. But instead, I cut a chunk off the other end because it's 3/8. And then I'm going to take this chunk, and I left a little burr on it so it won't fall out of the wrench. But I'll put it in a 3/8 wrench, and I'll use it like that. And that will hold that recessed head of that bolt so I can get that 15/16 nut off of it. I think this thing is very well built. I've never had any other chipper, so I can't really compare it to any other chipper, but this thing just seems like it's overbuilt, it's well engineered, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the WoodMaxx folks doing that, because if you've never chipped before, it's a pretty violent process. Now I've got to do this without cutting myself, because these blades on this side are pretty sharp. This is working pretty good. I got this broke loose with this breaker bar, and now I can just use this ratchet wrench over here in my left hand and loosen this bolt up. So I'll be able to get them. It wasn't easy, and they're very tight, so I did everything I could to try and get an impact wrench in there, but I just couldn't. And I got to be careful down here because there's a blade down here I don't want to catch my knuckles on. I call it an audible since that wrench is kind of stuck on that stub of an Allen wrench. I'll go ahead and remove these two 15mm nuts. And then I can just go ahead and change a vane while I've got it right here. Yeah, it's off now. Be a piece of cake. And that should be straight. That right there should be in line with that. And it was for the longest time. I just think over time and use, it bends. And here's the new and improved one. This is the part that's bent on the other one. And now it's got this long bar that's holding it, keeping it straight. It's also going to add a little bit more weight too. And the heavier the flywheel, the more the momentum, the better for chipping. When you're doing a lot of pine, there's a lot of sap. And that sap, I guess, is what's built up here a little bit. I just want to make sure this fits flush. Should be fairly simple. Still going to be hard to tighten that one bottom bolt, but it's on there. I got a little quicker with this second one. I used a ratchet down at the bottom instead of this breaker bar. And to get them tight, I put a piece of wood up under here so it wouldn't rotate. It still wants to come off the blocks that I've got here. But if I put all my weight over here, I've got this long 18-inch crescent wrench on top of this at least 18-inch breaker bar, 3/4 inch too, so, or half inch drive, not 3/4. So I'm just gonna put a open end wrench on here, or a box end wrench, I mean, and just make sure it's tight. And now that is not a friendly way to use a wrench, but sometimes you just have to abuse your tools a little bit to get the job done. And that is old school Craftsman. I've had that for 20, 30, probably 30 years. So I'm not worried about that breaking. I think it's time to put this thing back together. I got it in backwards, 100%. I was looking at it and I was like, something isn't right. The PTO shaft has to go this way. I got it wedged against this flywheel cover here, so I'm just gonna lower it down. I think it's in there. Let me see how these bolts line up. Got the flywheel back in place. I just need to make sure the grease fittings are turned to the top so it can be serviced. I think we can start these bolts now. The flywheel's all installed, and when I spun it, and that's just trash coming up from the bottom, but you can see where that fixed tang is right there with the buttress on it. As that comes around, and these blades right here go around and hit your bed knife, and your bed knife is down there. So that's the inner blade, and here's the outermost blade. As it comes around, you should have a credit card's clearance there. But right there, two of the blades are like barely hitting a little bit. So I had to back that clearance off. So that's what I'm in the middle of doing now, is tightening up these 3 bolts. And that'll get me the blade clearance I need. And then I should be able to drop that shroud, put in that bolt, and hook it up to the tractor. What I'm going to do is put in some wood shims here, and all they're going to do is keep that bed knife from moving. It'll be an Allen wrench on one side and then a 15mm on the other side. You don't have a lot of space to work here. There is a little hole you can come in from the bottom, and then I'm going to tighten that. So that's the outer knife, and that's what was hitting just a little bit on the tail end, but it's not hitting anymore. And there's my inner blade clearance right there. So what I got to do now is put this on with 1 pin, put that belt on, put that shroud on, hook it to the tractor, and go chip some wood. She's all put back together. Let's see if it works. I can already tell it's got a lot more airflow because those vanes are fixed. We'll start off with some pine and then try some gum that I just cut down a couple months ago. No problem with any of that. Let's try something bigger. And a whole pile of gum here. Good speed and good flow. Go a little bigger. This gum is a hardwood, so it's a little bit harder, of course, than pine, but it's making good chips. It's not often you find a company where their product is American engineered and American made, and also where they take and fix something out of warranty. So I can't say enough about WoodMaxx. Love this chipper. Hopefully you guys loved the video, and we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.